The Allied powers ultimately defeated Germany and Japan in World War II, but that victory was far from assured. What would happen if the Third Reich had won the war in Europe? Would Germany have control of Africa? Keep watching to find out. It's a well-known fact that the Nazis killed 6 million European Jews as part of the so-called final solution, as well as large swaths of other vulnerable populations. The genocide ended with the Allied invasions of Germany and Poland at the end of the war, as part of the German defeat. Had Hitler and the Germans never lost, the program of organized death would likely have continued apace, presumably on track to kill off much more of the Jewish population on the continent. Horrific as the legacy of the Holocaust has been, could it have been even worse? The Holocaust Encyclopedia, published by the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, put the total Jewish population of Europe at about 9.5 million. By those figures, another 3.5 million people could have eventually been killed, adding even more souls to the already grim tally. The real figure may have been slightly lower, though. The 9.5 million cited included the Jews of the Soviet Union, tens of thousands of whom lived in the autonomous Jewish oblast of Russia's Chinese frontier. These people lived far from Nazi territorial ambition. 9 to 9.5 million people seems like an inevitable, if truly bleak, toll. Hitler was serious about establishing a new German land empire. By 1942, Hitler ruled most of the European continent and huge sections of the Soviet Union as well, all the way to the Caspian Sea.
And then he's going to turn his attention to the east, which he sees as the natural field for German expansion.
Contrary to popular belief, though, Hitler didn't aim to conquer the world. He planned for Russia's Ural Mountains to form the eastern perimeter of the Third Reich. It's unclear, though, what Hitler wanted to do with the UK. The Nazis had planned Operation Sea Lion to occupy the British Isles, but Hitler seemed to go back and forth on whether England belonged in the Third Reich in the cultural sense. Operation Sea Lion would have been a bloodbath if it had ever been launched, but its corollary, Operation Green, the plan to invade Ireland, would have likely gone much more smoothly for the Germans. The Irish Times reports that the Irish army was seriously outgunned, with many of its divisions relying on bicycles, earning them the sneering nickname of pedaling panzers. But as in England's case, it's not clear that the Celtic island was Third Reich material. We can imagine that after its occupation and the extermination of its Jews and other vulnerable peoples, Ireland might have been permitted nominal independence and a docile pro-German dictator. So what about the fate of the United States? Hitler had no plans for invading the USA. He underestimated America's fighting capability, refusing to believe that a nation of mongrels could defeat his Aryan empire. The logistics, too, would have been even more daunting. With the Wehrmacht already stretched thin across Europe and Africa, occupying another large continent would have been impossible. Canada, a British subject, might have fared worse with Hitler as its head of state instead of King George VI. This means, however, that the United States could potentially keep fighting. Another atom bomb might have ended up being dropped on Berlin or another European city, decimating them like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In 1941, the U.S. Air Force began work on the Convair B-36 bomber, which could reach Berlin from a Canadian air base without refueling. The B-36 would not be ready for mass production until 1948, the year America's atom bomb arsenal reached 50 warheads. That's 50 cities worth of carnage, enough perhaps to bring the worldwide Third Reich to its knees. It's not guaranteed that Japan would win its war against the Allies if Germany won its own, but a German victory would mean the subjugation of the British Empire, including Australia, as well as the Soviet Union and possibly the United States.
But our greatest days, they lie ahead. Sieg Heil.
With its enemies out of commission, Japan's brutal expansion would theoretically meet almost no opposition. Japan would be the master of the Pacific, from the western shores of North America to the border of India. It would have been the biggest sovereign power in the world. Once Hitler had seized the oil and rich farmland west of the Urals, he planned to hand the rest of the defunct Soviet Union to Japan. The empire of the rising sun would certainly have swallowed more of mainland China. They would have also taken the American territories in the Pacific like Hawaii and Guam, all of Southeast Asia, and possibly Alaska. Japan had already taken British colonies like Singapore, many of which are major economic forces today. If Japan had enforced its insulated economic policies on these islands, the 21st century economic landscape would be completely different. Without Asian trade and manufacturing, there would be no globalization. Germany, too, had Pacific colonies directly in the Japanese Empire's path. It's unclear whether Hitler would have had to concede Germany's former Pacific colonies to his Asian allies, or if he would fight to reclaim them. Germany lost its colonies, including all outside the borders of Europe, in the Treaty of Versailles, which effectively ended World War I. These included the aforementioned islands in the Pacific, but more importantly, a significant number of African territories as well. These included regions like Cameroon and Togo in the west of Africa, Tanganyika, now known as Tanzania, and Burundi in the east of Africa, and Namibia in Africa's southwest. Hitler was determined to restore German control of these countries. He also planned to seize the colonies of his defeated European rivals, most notably France and Britain. Most of Africa, besides the Italian, Vichy French, and the Spanish enclaves, would likely be speaking German and flying a swastika banner. The Nazis enjoyed a fair amount of support among some of South Africa's Afrikaner population, which had historically opposed British rule and was quite experienced in creating and dominating a racial underclass. Some South Africans even formed pro-Nazi militias in anticipation of their unification with the Third Reich. It's not hard to imagine an African managerial caste reporting to Berlin and manned by Afrikaners, enforced by some version of apartheid from the Sahara to Madagascar. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about World War II are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.